All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to another, we haven't really titled this series yet, but maybe Little Joe Podcast, KO, I don't even know how to pronounce or how to say my podcast or my channel name. So kind of a big deal, Joe, Little Joe collab. Joe, are you going to change your name anytime?
What's that? Do I change my name?
Not your real name, but your like Insta persona name. Are you an IFBB Joe Seeman yet?
No. Everything, like all my social media is called Coach Little Joe. So
Coach Little Joe.
my
Yeah,
Instagram's Coach Little Joe, and then YouTube is also Coach Little Joe.
I guess for consistency, you're gonna keep it to Coach Little Joe.
Yeah, like everybody knows I'm a pro now, so I don't really need to tell them.
Okay, no tooting your horn.
Yeah.
So talking about tooting your horn, you had some really exciting news today, and that kind of prompted me to do this. We had agreed to do another podcast because I guess people somewhat like it. You got some good feedback, did you?
Yeah, no, I had a few people that said they liked it because it's it's a different form of content than what I'm usually putting out there with the training videos and such. So I think people like to see just being yourself, talking about topics that are popular going on in the fitness world.
Yeah, I think I got some positive comments too, and I think it's like the hardcore. Maybe I shouldn't say just the hardcore demographic, but people who like bodybuilding actually would rather watch this stuff than watch something like Nutrition 101, because they probably already know Nutrition 101 or basic cycles or whatever. I know you don't have that on your channel, but some people do, and they'd rather watch that than the informative kind of like basic stuff. It gives us like a platform to talk about other shit that's relevant in the industry right now. So okay, good. That said, guys, subscribe to the channels. I almost forgot. If you can, subscribe to Joe's channel, subscribe to my channel, and we'll have all the links. Anyways, if you like the podcast, let us know. Give it a thumbs up. Share it. As many shares as we can get. We're trying to get this moving. And, Joe has got some big things going on this year, including the most recent news. And I'll let Joe share it because he shared it on Instagram this morning. And it kind of prompted me to want to make this video even faster. We're going to do it on Friday, but I'm like, okay, let's do it now because I'm so excited. Get free for Joe to get free.
Yeah. So yeah, I did have some exciting news that I shared this morning, which is for the first time in it's almost been 3.5, 4 years. I'm now affiliated, as an athlete with Dragon Pharma. I just signed with them as of June. And I was just waiting to make sure, I got the products, and you can kind of see them if you look behind me, just back there, like there's all the products just chilling back there on the shelf. So I've had the chance, to start trying some of their products, and I'm actually going to do a product review. I'll probably post that on my channel next week. So I'll do a review of all the products and the ones I like, what I think works best, and so on and so forth, just to give everybody an idea of how everything works. But at the same time, I'm excited to be a part of their team. I feel like it's going to benefit both of us, and for me especially, like I'm excited, especially going in with a good company behind you when the shows are coming up. So it gets me more excited and confident to go into prep.
Yeah, for sure. And Joe fucked up last time we did the podcast because he wore the Dragon Pharma shirt after he pre-announced he had an announcement, and I guessed it.
I don't think anybody would have known that unless you're like, hey, is that a Dragon Pharma shirt?
I did. And I did. I called you on it. I'm like, is that a Dragon Pharma shirt, Joe? Is that?
Yeah.
Then I realized, because I could read you. I can read you now because I've known you long enough. And I realized I spoiled it. So I was thinking.
I don't think anybody caught on to that though.
Just making sure you can't see this. I got a side screen. I'm hoping people can't see it. I don't know.
I can't see anything.
I don't want to close the whole thing. Oh, boom. So maybe people could see that. Oh, well.
We'll find out.
Yeah, nobody cares, right? I mean, you guys are here for the content, not really our faces. Like,
Yeah.
you know, maybe. So more about Dragon Pharma. Let's hear more. Just what's going like you know what, they're a fairly new company, right?
Yeah, no, they are fairly new. I think they've been around, I believe they've been around since 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
They're based out of Florida,
Okay.
so which is kind of cool. So like, yeah, they're all based out of Florida, and like they recently wanted to expand and have athletes in Canada because I think they have most of their athletes are in the US, and I think they have a few outside of the US, like in Europe, I think, and like
Mm,
Australia and stuff like that, but they haven't expanded to Canada yet. So they've signed myself, and I know from what I heard, they signed Robin Strand as well. So
yeah.
there's another Canadian on there as well. But yeah, like they have a good product line. Like, you know, they have everything from, you know, like pre-workout to, you know, aminos to protein powder. They have stuff for your, they have a supplement for your joints. They have, um, uh, and like and so on. They have actually a lot. I can't even name off the top of my head all of them. I haven't tried all of them yet, but they have quite a few good products,
Yeah.
and they also have, you know, the clothing and
Mm,
everything else. But more importantly, I like what they kind of stand for, and it's more of like the real like bodybuilding like lifestyle and fitness approach more than just like the, you know, like the fitness influencer sort of like, you know, it's more of like I feel like their approach is more of like the hardcore bodybuilding vibe, you know, and they kind of like that's the kind of vibe I got is they want like, you know, some hardcore bodybuilders on their team, and that's why I found like it aligned with like someone like myself more than
yeah.
some of these other companies that are offering, you know, contracts.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like I wouldn't want if I were you, like a Gymshark sponsorship or something, or like and no offense to Gymshark and you know the clothing they make. I'm sure it's nice clothing, but it just doesn't scream like hardcore bodybuilding, you know, as much as something like Dragon. And Dragon looks like a hardcore company, like without, and plus, you know, another consideration too. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I don't think Dragon has any like controversial hardcore supplements like pro hormones.
No.
No. See, like, and that's hard to, it's hard to represent a company like that. And Joe, we talked about this before, like the pre-screening, what we were going to talk about, and I said I was going to talk about controversy, and I really don't want to talk about too much controversy, but I was doing a thing with Blackstone. I was like one of those ambassadors because I met them in Ohio,
Yeah.
and they sold me on it. And actually, it was a pretty good program. And I met PJ Braun and everything and his guys. I just, you know, quickly touch on that. PJ Braun really fucked up, in my opinion, with his posts, but that's another story. I don't want to get too much into it. Joe, you're looking baffled, so that's good. We won't talk about that.
No, like I totally get what you're saying. It's just I feel like that's a whole other topic in its own, and I
Oh yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. No, we're not going to talk about it. I promise.
yeah.
But what I was going to say is, like, I had a lot of pro hormones and stuff, and you know, these kind of products. And when I think about representing a company, like I think about what's my, you know, 19-year-old or cousin gonna be looking at from that line, you know? Is he gonna look at
Yeah.
hormones? Is it gonna potentially mess him up? Is he not gonna know what he's taking? Like I'd rather like a hardcore supplement company, but without any like super hardcore ramifications, you know what I mean? Yeah. But Dragon
No,
looks,
I agree, and that's the same as me. Like, I wouldn't want to represent a company that has any like semi-legal products on their line
that's it.
because
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It's especially in Canada. It's like the rules are different in Canada than the U.S. So it's like
Yeah.
all the products like Dragon Pharma has would all be legal in Canada. They
Yeah.
don't have them like at the stores, or like you can't go to a supplement store in Canada and buy them, but you can still buy them online and they would get across the border no problem, right? But yeah, that's actually a big thing too. Is I wouldn't want to have be behind a company like that because at the end of the day, if they go down, then it makes you look bad because you're promoting them. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just the ethical stuff too. I mean, just anyways, and these guys have Big Ramy, huh?
Yeah, yeah, they do have
So
Big Ramy on there too. So
yeah,
maybe in the near future I'll be able to
bring
do
him on.
something and with him at some point. That'd be pretty cool.
I was telling I was talking to Joe about this. I said, listen, guys, you better subscribe because we're gonna have Big Ramy on the podcast. Joe's gonna finagle it, right? We're gonna figure something out.
I'll see if I can work that. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna teach him English.
Yeah.
Like Cito did.
Yeah.
Actually, Ramy's English is pretty good. I think he's gotten better over the years.
He's probably, yeah, he's definitely gotten better. I think he's probably not like fluent, but he probably knows enough to get by.
Have you ever heard Nasser El Somebody in interviews?
Oh yeah, they're funny.
I think Nasser, and they're both from Egypt, right? So they both refer to themselves as, Ramy said, apparently Nasser used to do that too. Like by
really?
third person, he's like, yeah, Ramy is best. Ramy, thanks fans. And it's funny how he says that. I like it how he talks.
Yeah.
I guess
Well, listening to Nasser versus Ramy, Nasser was a lot more like full of himself, that's for sure.
Well, Nasser, that must have been an evolution though. I heard Nasser got really bitter near the end, and he I don't know, it was the bitterness, but he was always kind of full of himself too, from what I hear. But I think his linguistics improved over the time too. Like he was well spoken. That guy was a pretty smart guy. So it's unfortunate. Smart guys are often the ones who say the dumbest shit. Not that Nasser said, he just said offensive and mean things,
Yeah.
But, okay, so Ramy, you, me, podcast, subscribe, guys. That's a good reason. It's happening. It's happening next week.
Next week.
Next week, Joe's going to reach out to Ramy. Listen, guys, up this contract if we can't get Ramy on this local Ottawa podcast.
Yeah.
It's going to fly. Okay, cool. So I guess we'll move on. Anything else you want to say about the Dragon Farm? Do you get a promo code or?
Yeah, no, I do have a promo code. It's going to be, it's Coach Joe. Mm-hmm. So that's all capitals, Coach Joe.
Yeah.
And that'll be, I believe that's for 10% off products, anything on their site. So anytime, if someone uses that, obviously they can get 10% off anything that Dragon Pharma has anytime. It's not like a one-time thing. So yeah, they could use that as many times as they want.
Yeah, I really like that black shirt you were wearing in the ad.
This one?
Like no, the one you had on in Dragon Pharma. That's a Jay Cutler shirt, isn't it?
Yeah, this one's a Jay Cutler shirt. Yeah.
Cutler shirt. But you had like an all black one, has a D on it, but it's just a nice fit,
Oh yeah, like they sent me a ton of shirts. Like I have probably there's over 10 shirts that they sent me, and like a lot of them really fit nice too. Like they're really good shirts. It's not poor quality stuff. Like it's stuff you'd want to wear out and about, or even in the gym.
In the bar or something. Not that
do that. Yeah.
You go to the bar, but it does look like one of those like bar shirts that tight. If you were,
you could wear it out. Like if you're gonna go out to eat, you could totally wear it. It'd fit fine for that.
Yeah, it looks
they're nice.
Somewhat fancy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll be looking at those too. Let's move on to what I wanted to talk about today. And I don't know how many of the viewers have seen that Ronnie Coleman, Joe Rogan podcast. I talked to Joe about this a second ago, and I guess he caught some of it, which is good, not all of it. But I'm going to touch on as much as I can because there were a lot of interesting things that Ronnie said. And I want to start off just by saying, in all respect, if I do say anything that sounds like maybe like not insulting to Ronnie, but I have the utmost respect for Ronnie, and I don't want to go against whatever he says. I'm sure whatever Ronnie says is pretty honest, and he's a legend, and I have more respect for that guy than anyone in the industry. Anyone. I just think sometimes his facts are a little mangled or mumbled. But we'll talk about that. What did you think of Ronnie's interview?
I think, well, in general, I think the biggest thing to me that stood out was just like, I feel like he's not really in it anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's, there's some guys where it's like, they retire, but they still stay a lot more relevant. And I feel like hasn't really stayed as relevant. So when he's like, when they bring up like the modern day guys and they're like, oh, what did you think about, this Mr. Olympia, or what do you think about this guy, or this and that? And like, he just like, his comments seem sort of like, like he's just guessing almost at sometimes. Like it's not like he's really paying attention to what's going on currently. And that's not to say like, that's not knocking him. It's just like I feel like he doesn't really keep up with like the current top guys as much, because he's not in it anymore.
Yeah. And it's funny because he has a supplement line, and he should be he should be trying to stay relevant, and he does try to, but I think that the legacy carries him. Like Jay Cutler stays relevant by media. And I don't know how to put this, but Jay Cutler kind of needs to. Like, I know Jay Cutler's a legend as well, but I think Ronnie is almost an undeniable legend like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger can go vegan, talk about, completely contradict everything he's stood for in the past, and you'll still love him. It's like, oh, well, fuck, he's still the bodybuilder of bodybuilders, even though there are certain times where I'm looking at Schwarzenegger thinking, this guy isn't representing the sport as it is today. He's kind of stuck in the past too. In fact, if anybody's like at the same place Ronnie is, it's Arnold. Like, he hasn't really evolved with the sport, although he's a promoter. I just think he dislikes where the sport is now. So he doesn't agree, and he said some things. And the veganism is something that I find very interesting. But anyways, I don't want to make a podcast about Schwarzenegger. I'll go back to Ronnie. I agree with you there. Like, he just seems all over the map though, eh? Like, and you tell we're Canadian. I say A. Joe doesn't say A. But
I do, but probably I probably try to keep it low key. I don't want anybody to know. I say it.
I know. Don't be uncool. Don't say A. We'll bring Wayne on. He's from Newfoundland. He's Joe's training partner. You probably heard him in Joe's videos. He's from Newfoundland, which is like the most Canadian of our provinces. Well, Newfoundland and probably PEI and Nova Scotia are pretty distinct. Or Quebec, but Quebec's part of Canada.
Quebec's its own country.
Quebec's its own country, yeah. They're getting their own postal system too. Joe, you live in Quebec. You can't even talk. Your speaking privileges are revoked for moving to Quebec. Go to your Provigo. Yeah, back to Ronnie. It's just, he doesn't seem with it all the time. And I've heard this before, that people think it might be because he's on a lot of medication. And I really don't doubt he's on a lot of medication. Like, I think he's heavily medicated.
Well, and the thing is, I think a lot of people, like even now, especially younger people or people who are outside of the sport of bodybuilding, would reference Ronnie from like the Netflix documentary. Because like even me, like I could say an example, like when I go to like my car dealership and I'm getting my car serviced, the guys will always be like, oh man, you're huge. Like, are you as big as that Ronnie guy? Like, like, oh, that's so sad what happened to him. Like, this and that. And like, they know basically like Ronnie Coleman for being, he was a big guy and then he got crippled. Like, that's basically what people in the general public would know about him because of Netflix, And it's like, they're like, oh, that's so sad. Like, they're like, he crippled himself. And I'm just like, well, like, I don't really like argue with them because I'm just like, they're not going to understand it because, they've never been a professional athlete by any means. But it's like, it's, kind of like, I feel like that documentary sort of gave people a one-sided view of who he is or, and whatever. And I think in the documentary, he's talking about his medications. And I do think even in the documentary, he did say like how, like, obviously like they really numb the pain for him. So I'm assuming it would probably make him feel a little bit like a high or something that could affect like his, what he's saying.
Yeah, there's something cognitively off. Like, he used to, maybe he wasn't sharper, but this is a really intelligent guy. I mean, when you look at him on paper, he's got a degree. He writes. He used to write. I guess he used to publish books.
Yeah, he wrote a few autobiographies, I think.
Yeah, he wrote his autobiographies, but prior to that, he used to publish like journals and stuff.
Yeah.
He's a dumb guy. I just, maybe he's from Louisiana, and maybe the culture is different, and people are just, they speak differently, and they're more reserved in their speech. I don't know what it is, but Ronnie, to me, when I see him in an interview, it's like, I don't know, he just seems kind of off, especially lately. But I want to go back to what you were saying. People, man, that pisses me off. It really like nothing gets me angry. And I think I made videos where I get angrier and angrier, like YouTube, because I'm just thinking about it. And people who don't understand risk and the benefit of what we do versus the risk, or why we do what we do even though there's risk. And I use the analogy of like NASCAR racers. Like you think, and there's amateur and just recreational racers too, guys who go on dirt bikes and go to do the track. Do you think people who race actually don't consider that they're going to fuck themselves up, get hurt seriously? But they do.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous for me when somebody says, well, I had a comment, why do you do this if you know there's risk? And I'm like, why do you cross the street? Like, this is the reason this is my thing. This is my passion. This is my hobby. This is what I like to do. I acknowledge there's risk, but the risk is part of the entire process. And as long as you acknowledge it, and you try to minimize it, obviously, it's not like we're clowns just taking random risks. At least I hope not. And we're learning. Then it's part of the game. And the same thing with Ronnie Coleman. They're like, why did Ronnie lift so heavy? At that level, if you can't understand that, then I think there's something wrong with you. Like I'm a total, and I don't want to get too philosophical, but I'm an existentialist. So like, that's the branch of philosophy that believes like, do what you have to do to be the best you and create the best you can. That's your whole purpose. Like, we're not just here to sit and, no offense to people who can go on the assembly line and push widgets all day, that's cool, and push buttons and make widgets or whatever, manufacture widgets. Like, that's their prerogative, but I want to do something more. And I'm not saying just because I'm a bodybuilder, it's more than them, but for me, that's what I love to do. And for Ronnie, he was at the fucking top. So when people say like, the guy has no right, or he shouldn't have lifted that heavy, poor Ronnie, he shouldn't have lifted that heavy. Like, it just, see, I'm getting pissed off right now. You know what I mean?
No, I know, but I think the other thing is like a lot of people. The biggest difference I see between even like Ronnie Coleman when he was in his prime and he was winning Olympias versus now is like nobody in that time had their phones in the gym and all this bullshit that you see now. To be honest, and it's like, for example, like I can reference myself. Like I've had times where it's like I would be on my phone when I was in the gym. But like one thing I started to do, and I actually started to do it before the whole lockdown stuff happened, was I stopped going on my phone when I was in the gym.
Yeah.
I literally just leave my phone in my bag, or if I had it with me, I was not looking at it. I just had it for music, right? And like, I'm just being like, this is just for me. Like I noticed that like I was training harder, and it's like, you don't give a shit. You don't give a shit about what else is going on. And it's like, 100%. I feel like a lot of people now, it's like, they talk shit about Ronnie and how he lifted heavy, but it's like, maybe you'd be lifting heavier if you're actually focused on your workout, not fucking focused on your phone, Like,
yeah, but what's wrong with lifting heavy? It's not like the guy was like shooting heroin, or even worse, like, let's look at PEDs. It's not like he was doing crazy amounts of, I don't know if he was, but this isn't what exacerbated his disc issue. He was lifting heavy, so that made him not physically ill, but his body deteriorated because of it. But what's wrong with heavy lifting? What's wrong with being an athlete? Like, what's wrong if you're a cyclist and you have an injury and you want to train through it and you exacerbate or make that injury worse? I mean, you're just trying to get better. It's not like, it's not anything stupid. And Ronnie wasn't just some stupid amateur bodybuilder trying to, win, I don't know, YMCA, the Mr. YMCA, as they call it, I don't think we have a Mr. YMCA, but
no, I know what you mean.
Regional. Like, he was the best in the world.
People don't really, I find like a lot of people just don't get it, because like they've never tried to do something like that. They've never tried to be, other than, like the people say like, oh, like, I went to school and got a degree. That's dedication and so on. But I'm like, you're not really like there's a difference between like an athlete pushing themselves to be a professional and be the best possible professional they can be, and dedicating their life to it, and like you getting a degree, because it's like I know a lot of people that, you know, they get degrees and stuff, but like outside of that they're lazy and whatever, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, it's like it doesn't, it's a different type of like, I feel it's like a different type of person, a different type of mindset you have to do that. And it's like, even like, you know, I could say me versus like someone like, well, this isn't like talking shit at all before I even say it, but like Wayne, like me and Wayne train together all the time, right? But like for me, it's like this is what I do. For him, he's doing it because like, you know, he loves bodybuilding and he loves to train, but it's like he's not going in there every day like this is his mission, you know? Like for me, it's like when I go to work out, I'm like, okay, this is what I did last week. I want to beat those numbers. I want to, you know, this and that. Like even with the garage workouts, that's my mindset, you know? And I feel like it's just like when you take it that seriously, you can understand like why someone like Ronnie Coleman would push to those extremes to be the best, you know, versus like the average person is going to look at it like, oh, why would he want to do that to himself? Like,
Yeah.
it's like if you
Yeah.
ask anybody who's like, you know, if you asked anybody who's a top IFBB pro, you know, if they could win the Olympia, you know, in the next like 2 years or 3 years, if like they took some, you know, supplement or train like super heavy, whatever the heck the case might be, they'd all say, yeah, I'd do it. And like, even
Yeah.
if that meant they'd be, you know, crippled or dead in 10 years, like they'd probably do it because like they'd want to win that because that's like their whole
Yeah.
goal is to be the best they can be.
There's
You know?
actually a research study on that in athletes. There's research that indicate they polled athletes and they shortened their lifespan, like admittedly shortened their
Yeah.
lifespan on a survey just to perform better in their craft, which I think is admirable. Like I think that's an admirable characteristic because you're really devoting your life to something that's a passion. I just think people don't understand, and I don't want to say this, but the point of life, you know, it isn't just to be and live as long as you can and just be happy just being. Maybe if you're like in a Zen state, I don't know, maybe that's cool for some people, but I think some people need an external motivator to keep them going, a passion, something like creating. Like, shit, if I was an artist and I could paint all day, beautiful paintings, I'd probably do that, you know? And there's not much risk involved, but athletes, unfortunately, there is. So to create their masterpiece, they gotta make some sacrifices. Life isn't just about like just sitting there and not taking risk. If you sit there and not take risk, you're gonna have a pretty lame, you know, monotonous life, in my opinion. But it's a difference in philosophies. I guess that's why you are where you are, and that's why I do what I do. Although I see what you're saying about Wayne, and myself included, and pretty much any amateur. We don't go in there, and I think it's because Wayne's around my age, eh? I think he's like 40, 39,
He's 30, yeah, he's 36. But
36.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
like what I mean is like it's not like he's not gonna work out hard, but it's like
No,
at the end
no.
of the day, like he you know, he has a normal job,
That
like
that's
he has a career, he has that
that's
outside of it. So it's like for him it's not a not
it's
like
not
a
his
do or
goal.
die type, you know, mentality with it, right? It's like it's a hobby and a lifestyle that he enjoys. And so, and that's not me not even saying like obviously he wouldn't say those things about Ronnie Coleman being like, oh, like I don't know why he
No.
would do that. But it's just showing the difference between, yeah, like an amateur and a professional, and
Yeah,
like the different mindsets someone would have towards like, you know, that
for
like what you're
sure.
doing when you go to the gym, you know?
And that's exactly, I was gonna, you finish my sentence. Like that's Wayne, like I'm just like Wayne in the sense that, you know, I'm in my late 30s, and I have a career and I'm married, and Wayne's like the same, you know, we have the same thing. So professional bodybuilding, I think, is kind of set sail for us. Like it's 10 years ago, if we would have got into it, I think Wayne would have been a great pro and he would have gone for it too. But, you know, you got to realize when the time is kind of past
Yeah.
and just you have other things going for you. And for me, that's the way I look at it. It's like, well, I'm an amateur here, but I have other things. So I'm not going to allocate all my life. Whereas you started young, you were committed young, and now you're still young. Like you're not an old, you're what, 26?
28.
28, but you're, you know, 28, you're not even in your 30s yet, and you're in your prime probably at 34 peak, I would say, for bodybuilding. Maybe later, it's arguable, but you know, you're still not even in your, like, your muscle maturity can probably get better, I would assume. if you believe in that thing.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think for a lot of guys, like, well, if you reference someone, I would say that someone that has a more similar physique to mine and someone who started around the same time would be like Jay Cutler. And like he was getting, I would say he was getting to be his best in his early to mid 30s.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like obviously like it does take time to get that muscle maturity and that density and that overall conditioned, like polished look. So I feel like, once you get to like, for me, like obviously like in the next few years, like it's not really about adding tons and tons of muscle. It's just about continuing to shape and refine and, bring in that overall look that you can bring with like muscle maturity as well, and I think that's why it takes like, 10, 15 years to really like have that like top level look,
Well, let's go back to Ronnie. Like he started late. That's what he was saying in the interview. I think he was in his late 20s or early 30s when he started. He won the Olympia. And then, like, honestly, if we look at Ronnie's pictures, his last years weren't his best. But, dude, that would have been like, he must have been 40. He must have been 40.
I think he was in his 40s. Like he
was
I'm pretty sure he won his first Olympia. He was in like his mid 30s. Mid 30s, maybe late 30s, mid to late. Yeah, because I think his last Olympias, he was in his 40s. His last few Olympias, I think he was over 40.
I think his peak was probably, again, 34, 35. Like,
Yeah.
he peaked there, and he looked really good. And then there was a slow decline. But he had, again, like, it's hard to tell with Dexter held on, right? But Ronnie had all those injuries starting already when he was in his 30s. And that's what Joe Rogan goes about. Like, I had no idea after watching that interview that Ronnie got injured so often early in his career. Like, before his career even started, the guy was already broken from football and from powerlifting. Like, the guy into bodybuilding with, like, so many pre-existing injuries that got worse and worse and worse, like, from lifting. And he's still, like, but that to me is, like, the ultimate motivation. To see a guy, for him, there were no obstacles. You know what? It's like, oh, I herniated a disc. Maybe I should see a doctor. He thinks like 4 days later, and then he gets to see a doctor, and then next thing you know, he's back squatting. For the like not even 4 weeks, right? It's unbelievable that some people can just put it on autopilot and just ignore their pain.
Yeah, like it's just a different mindset, too. Because I've had times, like even myself, like when you're prepping, and it's like you have little things happen, like little aches and pains, and you're just like, the average person would be like complaining about that all the time, and you're just like, whatever, like I got to deal with it. Like it's whatever it could be, And I feel like with Ronnie, it's like he had that going into it, and like it wasn't something that like I guarantee you, if he was never Mr. Olympia or anything, he would never say like, oh, I wasn't Mr. Olympia because, I had my lower back was, weak or something. Like I had a back issue. So this and that. But it's like when you sit there and you hear that this guy had lower back problems and he would squat 800 pounds and deadlift 800 pounds and do barbell rows with like 500 pounds and all this craziness, like you got to be like, okay, yeah, the guy's a freak of nature, but to even be able to endure that is like insane. Because for me, like with a healthy back, lifting anything close to that, I'm like, holy crap, like your bones are aching from doing it. So it's like it's not a joke.
And the muscular pain the next day when you get that tightness, or you just pull a muscle in your back, and it's kind of like I don't know if you get this like more on the right side, and it's pulling, and like you can't. Have you ever not been able to put on your socks?
Yeah, I've hurt my back. I hurt my back once from deadlifting when I was younger. I pulled something in my lower back, and it was every time I'd wake up in the morning for about a few weeks, like I could barely like stand up straight, and like doing that kind of stuff like in the morning was tough.
Can you imagine he goes through that? He must go through that
every day.
Yeah, and he just wakes up and then he'll go train through it. This day, it's nuts. He's in a walker and he'll still train through it. To me, that's again admirable. I respect that. The other thing about that interview too that I found kind of odd was and you were talking about it, the body fat percentage.
Yeah.
Claims to be. Do you think Here's my question. Do you think he doesn't know like what true body fats should be, or do you think he was just making shit?
I think it's probably a combination of he doesn't really know the true body fat percentage, and the fact that like the general public usually, from what I've seen, like people either think that their body fat is way higher than it is or way lower. And I find like people in the like that are really into the fitness bodybuilding lifestyle would usually, for the most part, assume that their body fat is higher than it is. But the
Yeah.
general public, and this is just from like my experience as a coach, even working with like people in the general public, they always think their body fat percentage is lower than it actually is usually. Like say
Oh
for
yeah.
example, like someone who's obviously, overweight and carrying a lot of excess body fat, like they'd probably think they're like 15% body fat when in reality they're probably 30, 35, you
Yeah.
know?
True.
So I think it's just the fact that he has no idea what his body fat percentage was, and he's just like, oh yeah, I had no body fat.
It's point
Yeah.
33. Like I was like, you'd be so. But then he said on the DEXA he was actually negative. So if you were like negative body fat, that would be a flag. Something's wrong.
I don't think he'd be alive.
No, he wouldn't be alive. You can't be point anything. And
Yeah.
Greg Doucette has like interesting videos on body fat. It's weird the body fat, like just to touch on that, it's a totally different subject, but I've seen people claim to go into or have DEXA results and they're like really low, and then the next person looks as lean or maybe leaner, and their DEXA scan results are even way higher, like 8%, whereas someone else might be like around 5 on the DEXA, and that 8% looks leaner. So it's weird. I think it's somehow how people carry their body fat. I I don't even know if I.
Yeah, I think it's that, and I also think it's like total body mass too, right? Because I feel like anytime I've tried to measure body fat, like anytime I've ever tried to do it before, like I always find like if you're a bigger guy, it's
Yeah,
usually more inaccurate than for someone smaller too.
yeah, it's true. It's true. And the best are those impedance scales, like the ones they have at commercial gyms. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, those are the worst.
crap. I was 25%. I was 25% at one point, I think, when I was doing nationals, and like I wasn't 25%.
No, no.
Definitely impossible. So I was like, how am I 25%? Or was it that year I did provincials? So I was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5, I would say, 5.
Yeah.
There's no way I was 25. But it's hard. Like everybody thinks they're 3%. And I don't know how many people are really 3% body fat.
Yeah, I think well even for myself, like I would say like yeah, like even like my last shot is probably around 4%, like at the at the lowest. I think it's probably like what you see
Yeah.
people get down to usually is like 4%, anywhere from 4 to 6%, I would say. Somewhere around there was usually what you'll see people get to in bodybuilding. But yeah, like when people say, yeah, like, oh, it's 2% body fat or blah, 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 like anything like that, you're just like,
Shit.
I'm like, there's like only a few people I've seen like in like the history of competing that I actually thought that person could be below 4% body fat because it's just ridiculously like the conditioning is just insane. But like, there's not that many I've seen
That's it.
ever be that lean.
Yeah, yeah. And when you get like that low, when you walk on stage and your feet hurt, that you're
Yeah.
low and stuff like that. Like when you're extremely fatigued and when you're that lean, it's not a good feeling. That's how you know you're lean enough to compete. That's another topic altogether. Like, how do you know if you're lean? You should make that video because I don't think many people really know how lean they should be when they jump on stage.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Because I see a lot of people and they're like, oh yeah, I'm shredded. Even people I've helped out. Yeah, I don't think for your first show it's hard to know though. Like for your first show, it's hard to know how lean you should be. Like, and it's hard to even tell. I think your perception of it is like 10% body fat already looks crazy to you in the mirror, I'm sure, if it's your first show, or 8% or something. but you
Yeah.
don't understand what a 4 would look like. Like just once the water is out, that should be like lights out, you know. So Ronnie, what else did he talk about? He talked about his PEDs for a second. Notably that he took time off for the good part of the year, which I totally believe. And I was talking to a friend who I know pretty well. He doesn't believe that stuff. So there are still people who don't believe, like Ronnie Coleman would have taken time off, and I listened, and I'm pretty sure he did. You know, like I don't think I think Ronnie already was a genetic freak, and that's something we were having this conversation. He didn't believe that Ronnie would have been natural in the beginning, anyways. But I think he was. I really do think he was.
Yeah, like to be the fact that he's like hands down, in my opinion, like the biggest physique I've ever seen on stage in crazy condition. Like the amount of muscle he carried and to have that conditioning, that's not just some crazy cocktail of like pads, you know, it's or PDs, whatever. It's crazy. It's his genetics too. Like to be honest, because like that guy could have been, you know, to be honest, like if he never took anything, he'd still be better than probably half the pros out there.
Sure, for
Like,
sure. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and that's where like I do believe the guy took time off because like, what's the point? Like for most of his career, like you know, especially towards the end, like he was just doing the Olympia. So it's like a lot of guys that just do the Olympia aren't going to be on cycle all year just to do the Olympia. What's the point of doing that?
you
You
know
know,
what
like
my theory is, and I can't prove this, but my theory is that's a death sentence. Honestly, not to lower, not to, you know, and you've heard about pro bodybuilders, and it's hard because you're just speculating because you don't know what other people are doing, but people who are on like high amounts all the time, it's, and I can say from, you know, past knowing people and, you know, even personal history, past mistakes, that's really like that stuff will damage you big time, you know, just not taking breaks, letting your body relax. And I think Ronnie wouldn't be around. I don't think Ronnie would be around. Like Nasser, I can't speculate what he was doing, but I could assume that Nasser was probably going heavier than Ronnie. And he probably didn't even need to. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people just go heavier because they think it's the thing to do, but they don't need to. And I think that Ronnie is relatively healthy. And I think that's testament to he's probably telling the truth. But,
yeah.
you know, my personal theory, he's healthy other than all these disc issues and all the muscular skeletal stuff, which,
Yeah, like his issues are obviously like from his spine and so on causing him the issues. It's not his organs or his heart or anything like that. That's you know. But even if you look at him now, like for example, like people want to say anything, it's like sure the guy's a lot smaller, but he's still really lean too. Like for someone that can't move around that well, he's still lean. Like for a guy like in his 50s, like who hasn't competed in over a decade, like he still looks lean and still has little bit of muscle on him for someone who can, you know, barely
yeah.
do anything now.
I think I was watching it with Paul around, and I'm like, his arms are still bigger than mine. I'm almost sure but his arms are big. Is like they must be at least 19 and a bit,
Oh yeah, probably 18 maybe. Yeah,
maybe 18. I don't know, but they're not like
they're
tiny.
not tiny.
I mean, sure, they're not 22s anymore.
No, I think he had 25-inch arms in his prime.
I think he said 24. You can,
24, 25,
you
something
have
like that.
huge arms.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have huge arms. Maybe you can help me with that. You know,
Me?
what is the secret to having huge arms?
Uh
Yeah,
I don't think there's a secret to be honest. For me, like I honestly don't even I train arms once every other week.
yeah.
So I don't do them as frequently, and I find for myself that works better. But like I don't really find like doing more for them works better. You know, I find like less works better.
I'm telling you, it's genetics. I really think that certain, you know, when we talk about,
Arms and calves, yeah, maybe.
Well, not just arms and calves. Like there are certain muscle groups that are better on some people. And I used to think it was like maybe because of overtraining, but my shoulders, people are like, how do you get such cap shoulders? I'm like, I've never trained my shoulders. I legitimately never even trained my shoulders until I was about 34. Even like I think the first time you saw me at a show, I really maybe trained shoulders once a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my shoulders aren't like underdeveloped or anything. So
No.
yeah, no, it's weird. It's weird, but I think there's certain like arms are one of those you either got it or you don't, especially triceps. Like in
Yeah.
peak, but triceps like some guys have just these huge. It's like hamstrings, like the huge hamstring drop. You think that's partially genetic?
It is, but it's also knowing how to train your hamstrings too. Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah, you're
certain
right.
body parts I find like maybe not so much arms, but a lot of guys don't know how to train their hamstrings. Like I'll say that straight up. Most guys don't know how to train their hamstrings properly. And
Yeah,
that's why, and it might not even be the fact they're not training them. It's just like they don't know how to effectively execute like exercises. And actually, this is a little off topic, but like I saw a video John Meadows did not too long ago. He's talking about training legs and hamstrings, and like he touches on like how like most guys neglect it and like they'll just do like 3 or 4 sets of a leg curl and call it a day for hammies. And that's kind of like what they did back in Arnold's day. But I find like for me it's like if I do hamstrings, it's like especially in the gym, like I'm literally going to do like 4 or 5 exercises just for my hamstring focused legs. Like just to focus on hamstrings. And I find like for myself, like
yeah,
it's I don't think I have like gifted hamstring genetics really. I think it's just more just a lot of work I put into them. Like
yeah,
my quads usually I think I'm more quad dominant. So like for me building up my hamstrings to match them was like my probably one of my main focuses. And I think yeah, a lot of it I feel with hamstrings for the most people is yeah, some of it's for sure genetics. Like some people like a Regan Grimes, who has like naturally just has better hamstrings and adductors and such. But for most people, I just don't think they know how to really contract and train and
yeah.
isolate the hamstrings better.
Yeah, you bring up Meadows, and I agree. Like I watched a video on arms because I've been trying to actively bring up my arms, and Meadows has like all these variations, and I'm like, shit, I thought it was like curl, preacher curl, and close grip, and a couple tricep exercises. But for the curl, like he has like supinate, pronate, different variations, and he's explaining why like the neutral position, like hammer curls, will thicken your arm, like maybe widen or thick. Like it makes it bigger this way, like that way.
Yeah,
It's the not the the radialis, or the brachial, sorry, between the bicep and the tricep that like pushes out. Anyways,
yeah.
John's like a really good resource for that, and and I think my arms have come up a little bit because it's been quarantine too. Another great thing about quarantine, you can just throw around dumbbells all day.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're good with Ronnie. We touched on everything. I just want to, it's unfortunate. Joe Rogan was a pretty good host, but I found he focused too much on the negative, and everybody kind of makes Ronnie bad because like they focus on that. He has to do all this pain now, and I don't really think that should be a big area of focus when we're talking to Ronnie. Like it's obvious it's happening now to him, but he did great things, so we should leave that alone. And the guy's obviously happy, so to some extent.
Oh, and he even says it himself. He's like, I don't have any regrets except wanting to do a couple extra reps when he did 800 pounds on the squat. So like I feel like a lot of people, and it's the same. Like it's funny because like I had people say that to me, like with things like with prep or like when this and that happens, and they're like, oh, like I feel bad, and I'm like, I'm not asking for sympathy. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. Like, shit happens. That's part of it. Like I'm not looking for sympathy.
What do
And I
you do?
feel like a lot of people nowadays, because no offense, like a lot of people nowadays are just pussies. Like they
Yeah,
like that's just the way it is. Like honestly, like I see it on a daily basis. Like people like they just want to complain about something, and they want like attention for nothing. So
And, you know,
I respect Ronnie a lot for the fact that he's like, you know, even though he's going through all that, like the guy is still like smiling when he goes to an expo. He's still like, you know,
yeah,
greeting
yeah.
the fans, doing his thing, smiling, and like the guy's going through a lot of pain, and like you wouldn't even know it unless like, well, you'd know it, but like you wouldn't know it by his like face or the way he's acting, because like he acts like he's like, you know, just having the time of his life at the same time.
It's like deflection and lack of accountability. That I find that's the biggest thing. People are just aren't accountable for anything anymore. Like,
Oh no.
you know, if something bad happens, it's no longer their fault or their responsibility. They don't have to take care of it. They just want to like push it aside. But when great things happen, I mean, it's like, wow, look at me, I'm doing so well. And then something bad happens, like, well, it isn't my fault. It's Joe's fault, you know, like he did
Yeah.
it. It's
Oh,
always,
I deal with that all the time with clients and you know, coaching and stuff too, right? Like people love it when they're seeing these crazy results, especially off the bat if they just started and they see all these results, but then things start to hit sticking points, and then that's where, you know, in general, like you hit sticking points in life and people either are willing to push through and try to be better, or they're, you know, they let it take control and then find an excuse to feel sorry for themselves.
yeah. My favorite like would be clients, and I don't personally have any, but or that I know of, but people who fuck up and look shitty on show day and then can't own up to the fact that they weren't even doing what their coach said. That's why with you, I know Joe's coached me a number of times, but I've fucked up a lot. In the one show I really did follow Joe Tati. I came in really well, but you know, the other times my head just didn't allow me to, I guess, follow instructions. And like, you got to be accountable. You got to say like, okay, listen, who was responsible there? Was it me or was it my coach? And I think that happens a lot, that people like can't own up to their own mistakes. And then they'll just,
Yeah.
I was with so and so and I'm going to a new coach because da 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 doesn't know my body and da 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 da. You know, it's like, it's just an excuse. It's a cop out. That's the way I see it. People just want to be in denial.
Well, they want to find, it's like the thing that I've noticed, like even with myself, is like people want to find someone that's like gonna tell them something, an easier way to do it. You know, they want like an easier way to, or the secret methods or something, some secret, you know, PEDs or some, you know, secret diet or this and that. And it's like when I, like, for example, like when I outline something for a client and it's very basic and it's very to the point of what they need to do, and a lot of it involves a lot of effort and hard work. Like I totally had people, I could tell you straight up, they dropped off probably after a month or even weeks, because like it's just too, they probably thought it was going to be easier, and it's not. It's not easy. It's like if you want the results, it's like it's a lot of hard work. It's not,
Yeah.
you know, sunshine and rainbows.
Consistency and follow through.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe, let's talk about the Olympia quickly because we got like 20 minutes or something. Uh,
Okay.
what do you see happening?
In regards to like,
It's hard to know, like, because we don't even know. I don't even think we know who's qualified yet. But who do you think the top 5 guys are going to be this year?
top 5, I would say, well, it depends on who shows up, but
Let's
I would
just say
say for
everybody
sure,
like
like let's you know, um, let's think outside the box here and say a few guys that we would want to show up. Like let's say, you know, let's say Phil Heath shows up. Let's say Sean Roden shows up. Let's say Big Ramy shows up.
yeah, fair game. Any of
Dexter,
those guys could.
Brandon, and all those guys. Like I would say, like in my opinion, if there was no one not showing up, kind of thing. Like obviously, I'm not going to mention Kai Green because I don't think Kai Green's ever going to show up.
I was
But
gonna say he's kind of a wild card this year though, because people are you don't.
I
Yeah,
don't think Kai's ever going to do it again, man. Like he hasn't competed in like 4 years. Like he's still relative and everything, but like I couldn't see him doing it, to be honest. But I would say, like in my opinion, like, you know, I would love to see Phil there. I'd love to see Sean back there, and love to see those guys go at it again. Because like I totally would see, you know, if Phil came in at 100%, Brandon Curry's not going to beat Phil at 100%. Like there's no way. Um, and even a Sean Roden at 100%, like if Sean Roden came in at 100%, I don't think Brandon Cray is going to beat him either.
Have
So
you
like,
seen Sean Roden lately? I know he's done it before. Come from like,
he's heavier and stuff. Like he's off season for sure, but like he's not like he's still training though. That's the thing. Was like he's like,
yeah,
because put it this way, like when he did the Olympia in 2018,
you're right.
he started off his prep I think at like 230 or something, or 240, maybe 250, whatever it was. But
Wait,
like,
is that the year he did the prejudging? That was a controversy. He was really, and then he won the Olympia. Was that year?
2018, he's doing the Olympia, yeah.
Yeah, but was that the same year he did that prejudging at the New York Pro? Or
Oh,
not?
the guest posing? No,
Guest posing. Sorry, yeah,
that
guest
was
posing.
last year. That was last year he did the guest posing. Everybody's like, oh, he's not going to be in shape. But then he had all that controversy with the girl, remember?
So that wasn't before the Olympia, right?
Yeah, that was last year. So that's why he didn't do the Olympia last year, because all that crap happened. But
Right, but no, but did he the guest posing, wasn't that the year he won the Olympia?
no, it was the year after.
Oh, I'm all hazy.
Because everybody was saying like, oh, he's not going to be in shape for it, this and that. But no, this year, like he said, from what I've seen of him talking, like he's saying he's like, he's like 280, and like he obviously isn't like shredded, but like for him to be 280, I don't think he's ever been that heavy before. So I think he actually is. He said he's been training hard and stuff. So like, I think he wants to come back, and I know with him, it's like, I know he can get in shape. Like it's not a matter of he can't get in shape. It's just like, will they let him do it or whatever the case might be,
Yeah.
So I would say, like, honestly, like I would say if everybody showed up that can show up, I would say the top 5 would probably be like, Phil, Sean, Brandon, Hadi, and you could toss anybody else in there potentially, but
Rami?
what's that?
Rami? Did you mention Rami?
Maybe Rami, or it could be like, honestly, it could be Rami, it could be Dexter, it could be.
Dexter's not coming back. No. Dexter's done. The Arnold
Classic. This is supposed to be his last Olympia this year.
I thought he said the Arnold Classic was where he was cutting it off.
Well, he said at the Arnold's that this year would be his last Olympia.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so he wants to do the Olympia this year.
Okay. Well, if he does, yeah, definitely Dexter would be in the mix.
Yeah.
But, the up-and-comers, the biggest up-and-comer I can see is Sergio. Sergio definitely has legitimate stake at, like, top 6, I think.
Yeah, but I honestly think, like, this is maybe because I'm Canadian, but I think, like, Ian would beat Sergio.
I do think Ian would beat Sergio. Yeah, you're right.
So, like, I think, like, for example, like, if there's no Sean, no Phil, no Rami, then, like, I could see Ian squeezing into the top 6 even.
I know. I always feel like I shouldn't speak to it because I'm biased, like.
And it's true though. Like Ian's done, he's done a lot of shows and been in the top mix of a lot of shows. Like, it's not like he isn't capable of standing beside those guys. So
no, not even that. I mean, I just think I'm biased because no matter what, I'm gonna think Ian can hit top 5 or top. This year he's unequivocally in the top 10. I think he could top 10 the other years, but he improved so much this year. And his graininess and his size. And I think his new coach has got his new coach's philosophies are interesting. And I wanted to talk about diet today. I don't even know. Maybe we'll sidebar it, but like, I watched his coach talking about how he does this like low protein approach and high carb. And it seems to have really worked. I've actually kind of been doing that myself this year, and it's held well. Like, my protein's lowered. I used to drink, you know this, I used to eat a whole bunch of protein powder on my off season on my meals. It's not that I don't eat, it's just like I also eat tons of protein over it, which I completely unnecessary and empty calories. And I've gotten rid of that for the most part, and I've been eating since quarantine, fortunately, like chicken and real food sources. But carbs have been through the roof this year, like more than I normally, and trying to keep my fats low. And it seems to be a good strategy. Like, it just kind of keeps you lean enough. But your glycogen, they call it sarcoplasmic fluids, right? Like between the muscle fibers.
Yep.
It fills you out all the time. I don't know. I think it's really interesting. So we'll see how it pans out for Ian. But I think he would be eating like 1,000 grams of carbs from what I understand from that intro. I don't know for a fact, like, but
I
that's
think it's because well, I trained with Ian, right? Like I've trained with him before this started. We trained together a handful of times, and we were talking about some stuff diet-wise and that, and like from what it sounds like is like the P Tour guy is very like, it's similar to like what a Ceto would do, I guess, but like in the sense of like your diet changes very often. Like it's not like, and it's kind of like something that I kind of do myself, and even Jay Cutler did this. Like it's like a zigzag diet where it's like you'll do low carb days, and like the low carb days you'll have like a higher protein intake, right? And then like the moderate carb days obviously be like not a little bit different, and then like higher carb days your protein intake's lower. And I think that's kind of like what
makes
the
sense.
does. And like that's kind of like what I do with myself, or like, and I've started to do that with clients too. And it's like you have them kind of eating based on what they're training. So it's like, you know, if they need to bring up their legs and it's a leg day, that'd probably be a good idea to do a high carb day, and then, you know, save the low carb day for like a stronger body part, or, you know, base it could be based on how they're in prep, this and that. But like a guy like Ian probably has a lot more higher carb days because the guy's like burns through food like nothing. Like I know he eats, like his low carb day is probably like a moderate carb day for me, because he definitely eats more carbs than like what I would eat.
Yeah, his coach on that podcast with Fuad was saying that Ian flattens out on 500 grams. So I don't know if that's true, but
probably
I'm sure that's what he said.
Yeah.
So like, can you imagine 500 grams being? That's
a lot.
That sounds like me telling you I'm flat all the time. It's an inside joke because when Joe coaches me, I always think I'm flat. I always think I'm flat in general. Okay, so back to the Olympia. Let's look at the Beeline guys. Not Beeline. I mean, out of the top 5, and I don't mean like 10 to 18 or whatever. I mean like the next set of guys.
Like second call out.
Second call out. Let's call it second call out.
Okay. Well, actually, I totally forgot about one guy that should be in the top mix, would be William Bonac as well. But I'd say the second call out, you'd see guys like, you know, I'd say Raleigh Winkler would be in there. Sergio Olivia would be in there. Patrick Moore would be in there.
You think Moore will be in there? Patrick Moore will be in the second?
I think he could be, yeah. I think he could be like the second call out. Yeah, I think he could be. Like, he's got the potential to be. I actually think another guy that I think could be in the second call out, you know, that he hasn't done a pro show yet, but honestly, like, I think he could jump in there real quick, is Hunter Labrada.
Oh, shit. That's what I wanted to talk about, too. Like, when we were on the topic of Ian. You see those pictures on Bodybuilding Without Borders on Instagram? They have a comparison between Ian's current pictures or current progress and Hunter's.
Oh yeah.
Side, man, it's almost like not apples and oranges, but yeah, it's different structures, but Ian's like graininess carries him through too. And
it's honestly, like, it's very hard to compare people through pictures.
I know, yeah,
like
true.
When they're actually beside each other, because it's the same thing as like, even for me, for example, like before I did that pro show in Toronto last year, like a lot of people were like, oh, Ian, everybody always thought Ian was bigger than me. And it's like, finally I get to compete against the guy, and like, not saying I'm better than him or anything, but it's like, obviously we're a lot more similar size wise than people thought, because like some people even thought I looked bigger, whatever. Cause it's like, I was joking with him about it when we were training. I was like, yeah, man, everybody always says you're bigger than me. And he's like, if anything, you're probably a bit bigger than me, or we're around the same size, whatever. He's like, but it's like, we have different looks. So it's like, to the average person. And he also said, like, he's like, I'm a little bit taller too, right? So like when I take pictures, and a lot of my pictures I post, like progress wise, it's just me by myself, right? So there's no reference point. So people just see me by myself and they're like, oh, like, they don't really know how big you are or whatever, right? Until you're like compared against other guys. So it's like, I almost need to put like, you know, like Mo in the picture with me or something to compare an average person to what I look like.
No offense to Mo, but he's a
smaller guy, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's a young kid. Yeah, like, I mean, how old is he? He's a kid.
He's 19.
He's got some filling out to do.
Yeah, he's gonna fill out. He's gonna get huge.
Yeah, he'll be good. Good. Mo's probably gonna watch this. So. don't want to say anything. No.
All good.
I think, you know, between him, you're right. It's a hard comparison. That just, what do you think the outcome of that? Like, I think that's going to be the Hunter and Valier show, like, or the Labrada Valier show. Like, they're going to be the top.
What, Tampa?
Yeah, flip flop
Yeah.
between those
Well, as
two.
long as the border opens. But
Ian said he's
no, I
going to get
think
there
honestly,
no
like
matter,
I think
no matter what.
it's an interesting comparison, like because we haven't really seen Hunter on the pro stage yet, so we don't really know. Like, 'cause I think you know part of it is like the guy does have a great look and he looks crazy, but it's like you can't really. It's hard to say anything until you see the guy on stage, and it's the same for myself. Like I did one pro show and was in the mix, but it's like I haven't really got my feet wet yet. You know, I haven't done. I need to do a few more shows before people could be like, you know, yeah, this guy's legit, or yeah, he's shit. He'll never be anything. You know what I mean? Like it takes a little bit for people to really see that. And I feel like it was like what you were saying, like the last time, you know, it's like I need that exposure. And it's like I think it's the same thing for him. It's like he needs to like prove himself and have that exposure. But like he needs to go up against these guys like Ian and like some of these other like top guys who, you know, obviously are going to give him a run for his money and put him in, you know, either he'll be in the mix with them or, you know, they'll beat him, whatever the case might be. It all depends. But I think he needs to get his feet wet. And I feel like once he does, then people will kind of be like, yeah, he's, you know, the next top guy or he's, you know, this and that, you know.
He could very well be like Patrick Moore. Like, no offense to Patrick Moore, but, you know, if you look at Patrick Moore's pictures and his videos going into the Arnolds, I was like, that guy's top 5 material. And then, you know, same thing with Olympia. I thought he'd do a lot better than he did, but when you saw him on stage, it just kind of wasn't. He was lacking the size, I think, of the other guys. Was basically it. It looked like almost Patrick could do classic.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like pictures by himself, the guy looks great, but then you put him in a lineup, and it's like it shows how he's a little bit smaller, and you know he's got a great shape and he's got the tight waist, but I feel like he needs a bit more overall size, especially to his legs, I think, and then. Once he has a little more size, I think he'll be, you know, pushing for a higher placing in like an Olympia or Arnold's. But
he'll definitely win one of the bigger pro shows. I can see that happening, like one of the big shows.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we should have talked about, these first upcoming shows. Do you know who, like, instead of talking about the Olympia, let's just finish this off. Do you know who else is competing in Tampa?
I
don't either, to be honest.
I haven't heard of too many people, like, because I feel like because of all that went on, like it's kind of iffy who's doing it. But I've heard a few people, you know, because I think Tampa's in about 6-7 weeks. It's not too far off. Like Tampa's like in, I think, mid-August, so or early August. Actually, it's like August 7th or something. So
their economy is fully, like, they're fully booted up over there in Tampa. So I from what I've heard.
Yeah, they have gyms open, I think. Yeah.
It's not like New York. The New York Pro, it's like, actually New York just booted back up too, everything. So their gyms, I saw Steve Weinberger talking about they're opening Bevs, and so maybe New York is starting back up too.
Yeah, I feel like in the States they're a little less of you know, they're not as much of pussies as Canadians are with opening stuff up.
It started, well, they have President Trump. Remember, we weren't going to talk politics here, so.
I know, but you can just tell I'm a disgruntled Canadian right now who wants his gym open, so.
We're frustrated. It's coming.
Yeah.
I've got my little sweet spot now that I've been training at, which has like all the good machines.
I know, but I honestly just miss the gym vibe, man. Like it's just not the same.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna happen again.
It's gonna be soon. Like I'm keeping tabs on it though. So like hopefully, you know, within the next week or two, gyms will be open in here. So
cross my fingers. I just had a release from Movati that are saying one of our commercial gyms here is saying they may be opening, or they're preparing probably July, I think.
Commercial gyms will probably be like the first week of July or something. And then I think, private gyms might be a little sooner, like gym like New Body or whatever might be a little sooner. But it's just all based on how these phases go. But like from what I was told even earlier today, it's like since they open stuff, like last week, cases have still been dropping, especially in like Ottawa and stuff. So like they're not getting worse really. So it's like it doesn't,
Listen, if the protests aren't going to bring out more viruses or more spread, it just to me
it just proves they can open everything up,
yeah, it proves that they can open everything. It baffles me how this hasn't caused a second wave. But anyways, I'll leave that.
It's a picky virus, man.
It's this whole thing has been so frustrating. I mean, I
Yeah.
want to take the right contingencies, and I'm a very conservative, not conservative, but I'm more of from on the political spectrum. I look at things through like rather the government take control and tell us what's safe and what's not. But after this all happened, I'm starting to be a little bit of a cynic. Like it looks like a lot of the scientists overprojected. And it's just, maybe I'm just saying this in hindsight, but it's been a little frustrating. But I didn't want to talk about this because I don't want to get on that. But yeah, the gyms need to open, man. The gyms really need to open, and we need to start for our mental health. I think like a lot of people have just suffered through, even the golf courses weren't open.
Well, exactly. And like I saw,
why wasn't golfing open? Like that's social
the funny
distancing.
thing is like, well, the funny thing is like I saw like one of my friends sent me an article earlier, and it was about how like there's a gym in Quebec City that opened and just said like, screw it, I'm opening my gym. And like the guy basically said, he's like, the government has pretty much forgot about the fitness industry and the gyms. Like they're basically, opening everything but the gyms at this point. And it's like the people who are in the fitness industry are getting screwed, like myself. It's like for me, like gaining business right now is very difficult when there's no gyms, because no one wants to sign up for a coach if they don't have a gym to go to, and they're working at home with bands or something, So it's like not only the gym owners, but like everybody who's involved in the fitness industry is taking a hit because of this. And it's like, I know other industries were affected too. I'm not saying they weren't, but it's like the fitness industry and like the health and beauty industry in general is the only one that's been like totally been like, we'll just let them stay closed another month. That's okay. Like,
it's frustrating because there's a lot of commercial, like small businesses, not just big commercial businesses, like not just big franchises like Good Life and whatnot, but there are small gyms. And these people seriously suffered, like Jay Nera, who owns Dynamo. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. He was really frustrated when the protests started, and just the fact that it was supported by the media and the government, and, open his CrossFit gym,
yeah,
powerlifting gym. There's ways to distance. I do accommodations for employers for workplace injuries for a career, right? Like that's my career. Like for a profession, I help people figure out to accommodate their environments. Pretty much, a lot of this was preventable, man. You could have made accommodations to the gyms, and it would have worked right away. I think the government could have taken a different approach with this. Even like if they believed that social distancing needed to be put in place, there were things we could have done. Like it frustrates me. They even closed down my gym in my apartment building. Like, give me a key, I'll wipe it down when I'm done. Like what the fuck?
Well, like honestly, like I think, in my opinion, I think Sweden had the best idea, because like with them, it's like they kind of kept it where it's like if you're sick, you should stay home. If you're not, then it's like everything was still sort of open and whatever. And they didn't really get much more of any people getting infected than anywhere else. So
yeah, well, the WHO released some new someone from the WHO, the World Health Organization, apparently sent out a memo, or I'm not quite sure, what exactly, and I don't want to misquote, but they were saying that people who are asymptomatic weren't really as contagious as they thought. And then they tried to retract it, and I'm like, well, which one is it?
They're just guessing almost,
It's frustrating, man, because it's frustrating for everyone because of the anxiety it caused people and all types of things. Yeah. Anyways, enough with that shit. So good season coming. You're back in the mix. I think slowly we're going to get back to somewhat normal. And that means, at least from a bodybuilding perspective or from a professional bodybuilding perspective, you guys will have your season intact. And Well, the good thing is, like you even said it, I think it maybe you said it last time. I don't remember, but I remember when, but I remember hearing you say that you were pleased to have like a sponsor after all this shit. Like it was like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's true. Like honestly, like it was through all that's gone on in the past few months, like it was really cool to actually get an opportunity like that, and it'd be something that I've been looking, like kind of holding off for, or like hoping for in a sense, waiting to see an opportunity like that come about. And it's came about during this time, which was kind of like a bit of a motivating factor that makes me want to get back in the gym that much more, because I want to be able to be, going 110% every day, and like be back fully into that routine that I'm used to. And it's like, it's so hard to like every day, man. I tell you, every day I'm like, just like, the gym needs to open. Like, it's like, I know I do have a decent amount of equipment and I'm thankful for it, but like, it's just not the same. Like, it's not the same. And like, anybody who like, I feel like it's funny because a lot of people will be like, oh, you should be thankful that you have anything. And I'm like, or they could just open the gym, because there's no reason it shouldn't be. Like,
But they're kind of like we got to be like I'm thankful that
I get it. Like, I get it, but it's like, come on. Like,
have you seen? I'm just saying I'm thankful because have you seen some? Like I'm starting to see pictures of just some people, and I wonder if they just completely gave up. I'm like, wow, downsize is not accurate. Like you've lost everything, and they're waiting to build back up. I guess when the gym's open, I don't know what they were doing.
yeah.
They definitely weren't training. But I've seen a couple pictures of people who have downsized, and that's I all you needed was some basic dumbbells and a bench. It's not really rocket science.
No, you don't need a lot to like maintain. But yeah, like when it comes to the contest prep and really getting in the best shape for a show, like
Oh yeah, for
it's
you
kind
it's
of hard
different.
without the gym. Like,
But for you it's
unless you have an amazing home gym set up.
I'm talking, yeah, like the gym I'm training at is legitimately like the studio I'm training at. The hammer, the shoulder press from Movati, the good chest press, a good leg press, like a plate loaded leg press, squat rack, bench.
Yeah.
They're all from commercial gyms too. Like these are commercial grade stuff. The pull down goes up to 280. The cross cables, everything's there, man. Like it's the whole thing. Honestly, I would give up a gym membership for this place any day now. It's just so convenient, like having everything there, and all the dumbbells from like the beginning to 120. It would be nice to have 150s, but you do what you can. But like, I don't know. New Body will be open soon, right? Hopefully. So
Yeah, I'm gonna find out this week probably when it's gonna happen, but it should be very soon. Yeah.
let's tell, because everybody from New Body is watching this, so they're gonna be like, New Body's opening. Joe.
Well, trust me, I get people messaging me every couple days being like, "Oh, is New Body? Do you know when New Body's opening? Do you know when New Body's?" I'm like, guys, trust me. When I know, you'll know. But like,
I
I
got
can't.
this at
It's
the
not my
beginning of
decision.
quarantine, all the way from March to almost to date. Like people would message me like, when are the gyms opening? It's like, who do I look like? Like the 411? How do I know when
Yeah.
the gyms are open? Well, if anybody knows, you'll probably know. I'm like, no, dude, I don't know when the gyms are opening.
Yeah. I wish I had that kind of control.
I'm not Doug Ford, man. Like ask,
Ah, I don't think that no one in the fitness world likes Doug Ford right now. That's for sure. Or Trudeau.
I do like Doug Ford kind of though, but he's
Well, on this one, I'm not a fan, but
yeah.
yeah, I think yeah, I'd say yeah. There's a lot of stuff he did well, but delaying the gym opening is not one I'll agree with. I guess
Yeah, it's been frustrating.
I'm biased too.
Okay, man, you got to train, eh? You got to go.
Yeah, I gotta get. I probably should get. Yeah, I should probably get ready and
Like,
eat and stuff.
it's so funny. I'm like, Joe, when can you do this? He's like, well, I got to train and I got to eat at this time. So Joe's schedule, he does treat
I'll
it
just
like a career.
I'll send Wayne a message. I'll be like, hey, bro, gonna be late. Had to do a video, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I can even see you do that. I can see you being so upset. Are you really going to be late though?
Doesn't matter, man. Like I get there, we usually start around 6, so I have enough time to eat and that. Like I'm just, as you say, like OCD. So
You are OCD, yeah.
very to the time of the day. I'm like, crap, it's 4:30. I got to be eating. What am I doing? You know,
I know,
like.
and I just don't want to piss you off because I know you're OCD. Okay, well, we'll let you go. Have fun training, and we'll do this again. Like I said, we got to get more people in, and if you guys tune in next week, we'll have Big Rami, so subscribe. Right? Okay, subscribe to Joe.
Straight.
Subscribe to mine. Kind of a big deal videos. And Joe, what's your out? Do you have an outro?
Coach Little Joe.
Coach, that's a fucking outro for you. Okay. Promo code for Iron Rebel for my free t-shirts because I need to build money for free t-shirts. 10. Joe with a legitimate sponsorship has a promo code as well.
Yeah.
Joe?
Coach Joe, all capitals, for 10% off any Dragon Farmer products online.
Joe on Instagram.
Coach Little Joe.
Joe on Facebook. You're not on Facebook, but Joe on
YouTube.
Not on Twitter either, are you?
No, I'm on Facebook, but like no one uses Facebook that much, really.
Joe on what's that other platform? YouTube.
YouTube, yeah. YouTube's Coach Little Joe as well.
Okay, subscribe. All right.
Subscribe.
All right. Peace.
All right.
I feel like a job. Peace.
Peace.